She didn't cry. Not at first. Not even when the interviewer brought up his name again, Brad. But the tremble in her voice said it all. And then, she whispered it. I never really moved on. Jennifer Aniston has spent years keeping her heartbreak hidden. But now, for the first time, she's finally opening up about the man she never stopped loving, and the quiet pain she's carried alone. For years, the tabloids tried to speak for her. The fans speculated. The photos were dissected. But Jennifer? She said nothing. Until now. Because what she just admitted changes everything. Before she became a tabloid staple, before her name was linked to the most talked about Hollywood triangle in history, Jennifer Aniston was just Jen. The girl next door who made the world laugh. The kind of woman who felt real, relatable, and genuine in an industry that often rewards everything but. Her breakout as Rachel Green on Friends catapulted her into worldwide stardom. But it wasn't just the show that captured hearts. It was her. Fans didn't just watch her, they rooted for her. In an era of supermodels and glamour queens, Jen stood out because she didn't pretend to be perfect. She wore her heart on her sleeve. She stumbled. She laughed at herself. And audiences fell in love. That love only deepened when she began dating Brad Pitt, the golden boy of Hollywood. He was the heartthrob, the movie star, the man everyone assumed would stay a bachelor forever. Until Jen. Together, they looked like the dream. Effortless, beautiful, magnetic. It didn't feel like a PR stunt. Felt real. Their romance was a breath of fresh air in an industry full of fleeting flings. When they got married, fans celebrated like it was their own best friend walking down the aisle. They weren't just celebrities. They were ours. But no one could have predicted how fast a fairy tale could unravel. For a while, everything looked perfect from the outside. Smiling red carpet appearances, glowing magazine spreads, endless quotes about being each other's best friend. Brad and Jen weren't just Hollywood's favorite couple. They were untouchable, unbreakable, until they weren't. The cracks didn't show right away. They rarely do. But something shifted. Whispers began. A new movie. A new co-star, a different energy. Then suddenly, the rumors had names. One name, specifically, Angelina Jolie. Brad met Angelina on the set of Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and the chemistry between them was undeniable, even to those watching from a distance. Paparazzi shots, magazine features. The narrative began to write itself. Still, Jennifer stayed quiet. When Brad and Jen announced their separation, it sent shockwaves through Hollywood. The dream was over. But what devastated fans the most wasn't just the breakup. It was how it happened. How publicly it played out. How quickly Brad moved on. How Jen was left to face the cameras alone. There was no dramatic tell-all. No revenge interview. Just silence. And a woman trying to keep her dignity intact while the world dissected her broken heart. Photos of Brad and Angelina started surfacing almost immediately after the split. Candid shots on beaches. Interviews where Angie spoke about falling in love during the film. The confirmation everyone dreaded but expected. And Jen? She kept showing up to press junkets, red carpets, talk shows with a practiced smile and tired eyes. Behind closed doors, though, it was a different story. In the years that followed the breakup, Jennifer Aniston became something else entirely. A symbol. She was labeled the wronged woman, the one he left, the one who wasn't enough. The headlines never let her forget it, and neither did the fans who saw her pain mirrored in their own lives. But through it all, Jennifer never lashed out. She didn't throw accusations. She didn't tear down Brad or Angelina, and she never played the victim. But that silence? It wasn't peace. It was survival. Behind the interviews and movie premieres, there were private moments that told a much different story. Friends later admitted that Jen cried herself to sleep during the worst of it. That she threw herself into work not out of ambition, but as a distraction from the ache. She attended therapy, leaned on her tight circle of girlfriends, and tried to hold herself together. But no matter how much she smiled for the cameras, the heartbreak was always just beneath the surface. In one now iconic interview, she was asked directly if she believed Brad had cheated on her. She paused, smiled softly, and said, "There's a lot I could say, But I'm not that kind of woman. That moment said more than a tabloid ever could. Because Jennifer Aniston wasn't interested in revenge. She was interested in healing, even if it meant doing it quietly. Even if it meant carrying the heartbreak alone. Years passed. Decades, even. Brad and Angelina became the most talked about couple in the world. Red carpets, adoptions, humanitarian work, children. Jennifer stayed in the background. Dignified, graceful, moving forward, but never quite moving on. But recently, something shifted. In a quiet, deeply personal interview. More conversation than spectacle. Jennifer opened up in a way she never had before. There was no glam, no scripted answers. Just her, raw, reflective, and finally ready. She didn't name names. She didn't have to. The interviewer asked a simple question. Do you believe some loves stay with us forever? And her answer? I think sometimes you don't really get over someone. You just learn to live around the absence. You carry them with you, whether you want to or not. Her eyes welled up. Her voice cracked. And in that moment, the years of silence broke like a dam. She spoke about what it felt like to lose someone, not just to another person, but to a version of himself she no longer recognized. She spoke about how hard it was to watch someone you loved rewrite your story without you. And then, she said the words fans had waited years to hear. I never really moved on. It wasn't bitter. It wasn't angry. It was just true. Jennifer explained that it wasn't about still wanting him back. It wasn't about holding on to the past. It was about the wound that never truly closed, and the part of herself she never got back. He was my person, she said softly, and when that ended, something in me did too. She didn't blame anyone, not even Brad, but the quiet devastation in her voice said more than blame ever could. She had carried the weight of their story alone for far too long. There was one moment, Jennifer confessed, that she never fully recovered from. A moment the world watched and dissected, but no one really saw through her eyes. It wasn't the cheating. It wasn't the breakup itself. It was what came after. Brad and Angelina appeared on the cover of W magazine, posing as a 1960s suburban couple, with children, with laughter, with an entire fictional life built around domestic bliss. The photo shoot came just weeks after his split with Jennifer. The symbolism wasn't subtle. It was brutal. It wasn't just a professional shoot, it was a public rewriting of history. A declaration that his new life had already begun, and hers had been left behind. Jennifer admitted that seeing those photos felt like a punch to the gut. It was as if her marriage had never happened, as if she had been erased. I remember looking at those pictures, she said quietly, and I just broke. She said she stared at the images for hours, trying to figure out how someone could move on so quickly, so completely, and so publicly. That was the moment she realized he was really gone. Not just physically, emotionally, spiritually. She didn't tell anyone then. Not her closest friends. Not her publicist. Not even her therapist. Because in that moment, she wasn't just heartbroken. She was humiliated. The world celebrated the Brangelina fantasy, while Jen sat in the quiet aftermath, mourning a love that had once meant everything. And yet, she still said nothing. She let the world believe she was fine, that she had healed, that she was over it. But the truth? That image, the black and white illusion of Brad's new perfect life, haunted her. And no matter how many years passed, no matter how many films she starred in, or awards she accepted, that moment never truly left her. It was the scene that broke her, and no one knew. Even as the years passed and the headlines faded, one thing never changed. The public's deep emotional investment in Jennifer and Brad's story. There was something about them that never lost its magic. Maybe it was the way they looked at each other in old interviews. Maybe it was the way their love felt pure before it was shattered. Or maybe it was the silence. The fact that neither of them ever truly told the whole story. So the fans filled in the blanks. They created timelines, compared red carpet footage, watched old Friends episodes looking for hidden meaning. Every time Jennifer made a red carpet appearance looking radiant, the comment sections lit up. Brad must be kicking himself. And when Brad's marriage to Angelina began to crack, the whispers grew louder. What if he goes back to Jen? It wasn't just gossip. It was hope. Hope that maybe, somehow, the people who belonged together would find their way back to each other. And that hope exploded in 2020. Brad and Jen's reunion at the SAG Awards sent social media into a frenzy. The backstage photos, the hand on her wrist, the way she smiled as she walked away, felt electric, intimate, loaded. The internet practically stopped. Millions of fans across the world stared at those few frames, analyzing every gesture, every glance, because in those brief seconds, it felt like they had never stopped loving each other. Jennifer would later say, in an interview, that it was just a moment between friends. But the way she paused before saying it, the flicker of something in her eyes, told a different story. That reunion wasn't staged. It wasn't rehearsed. It was real. And for Jen, it stirred something she had worked hard to bury. "I smiled because I wanted to," she once said. "But I walked away because I had to." That moment made one thing painfully clear. The world never stopped rooting for them. And deep down, maybe neither did she. Over the years, Jennifer tried to rebuild, tried to love again. She dated, she married, she moved into new chapters of her life. From Vince Vaughn to John Mayer and later Justin Theroux, each relationship brought new hope, new beginnings. But privately, she admits something always felt off. It wasn't that those men weren't enough. It's that her heart wasn't fully open, not the way it had once been. There's a quote she once gave in an interview that fans often revisit. "When you've had the best, the rest can sometimes feel like a comparison you didn't ask for." She didn't name names, but she didn't have to. Her relationship with Brad had set a standard, not just in love, but in connection. And even though it ended in betrayal, the depth of what they shared haunted her. In one of her more recent confessions, Jennifer opened up about her biggest regret. It wasn't staying silent. It wasn't losing him. It wasn't the heartbreak. It was stepping back. "When things started to shift," she explained, "I gave him space. I thought I was being respectful. I didn't want to fight for someone who wasn't sure. But looking back, I wonder if I should have fought anyway." She talked about watching him drift, not with anger, but with helplessness. How she told herself if he wants to leave, let him. And how that moment, that decision, haunts her still. Because sometimes, love isn't about letting go. It's about holding on even when it hurts. She regrets not saying more, not asking more questions, not demanding the answers she deserved. But more than anything, she regrets not telling him she still loved him one last time. She often describes herself as strong and resilient. But when it comes to Brad Pitt, her armor never quite held. And for all the success, all the growth, all the evolution she's experienced, there remains that one quiet truth she rarely says out loud. He's the only person I didn't really get to say goodbye to. For Jennifer Aniston, the pain of losing Brad Pitt wasn't about drama or betrayal. It was about the lack of closure. She never got the big conversation, never got the chance to ask, why her? Or was it real? Or even just, were we not enough? Instead, she was left with silence, a kind of emotional cliffhanger that no one truly prepares you for. In public, they moved on. But in private, Jen kept something most people never knew existed. A handwritten letter Brad had left her in the early days of their marriage. Tucked in a drawer, folded and fading with time, it was simple. A note that said, "No matter what, you'll always be my home." She never mentioned it in interviews, never showed it to anyone, but it stayed with her, through the divorce, through the heartbreak, through all the years she tried to let go. Because some words live inside you, long after the person who said them is gone. And for Jennifer, that letter became the one piece of him she never let go of. It was her reminder that, at one point, it was real, that it wasn't all in vain, that her heart hadn't imagined it. But it also became her burden, the weight she carried when the world thought she had moved on. No final goodbye, no explanation, just a memory and a truth she kept buried. Until now, Jennifer Aniston never told her story to get sympathy. She never exposed Brad, never played the victim, She simply held her pain quietly, like so many women do, because real heartbreak isn't always loud. Sometimes it's silent. Sometimes it's surviving when the world thinks you've healed. Sometimes it's learning to smile through the ache that never fully leaves. And in finally sharing her truth, not in anger, but in vulnerability, Jennifer gave voice to millions who have loved deeply and lost silently. It's not about still wanting Brad back. It's not about the past. It's about honoring a love that meant something. A love that shaped her. A love she never got to properly bury. And maybe that's what makes her story so unforgettable. Because while the world moved on, and the headlines changed, Jennifer Aniston never pretended it didn't hurt. She finally said it. I never really moved on. And in that single, quiet sentence, she spoke for every broken heart that still remembers what it meant to love and to lose. For more of the latest news, check out this video.